Hello, welcome back to the Majestic Devlog. It's been a while and there's a whole lot to talk about. So one of the first big changes, as you look at the images, some of the visuals have been enhanced. I did a pass on all of the visual assets such as the sky, grass, foliage, and the post-process volume. One of the triggers for this was looking at my previous game, The Companion, and seeing how vibrant and sharp the colors were. And then I would come back into this game and things were a little more washed out and desaturated. And I just wanted to get that vibrancy back into the game, since it is a similar continuation of the story from The Companion. I want to maintain some similar stylization. So the trees and grass is more pastel and various blue coloring, and the stonework and other hard surfaces have more magenta in them, and there's a little more contrast and vibrancy going on in the level. Looking below and seeing the various hues of the trees just is a lot more interesting than a whole expanse of green. So I really like getting that blue in there. Last month I did not do a devlog because it was the release of a trailer for the game, and I'm very happy with where it ended up. It's on the Steam page. It's allowed the game on Steam to acquire more wish lists over time. Basically, getting a trailer on Steam, on your Steam page, helps quite a bit with drawing a little more attention to the game. Even though the views elsewhere have not really taken off as I would have hoped, it's still doing a pretty good job on Steam. So as I mentioned previously, I've gone back to the Companion, and I did a small update to the menu and changed the menu of the Companion, and it's now this uses this level that is from deeper in the game as the menu scene. So that's why this level is cut up a bit. I cut it down to only the part you will see for the menu. While updating this menu for the Companion, that triggered me to go back into the Majestic and really do a whole pass of the colors in the scene. So in the Majestic, this aerial view of the town, I overlaid it with a clip from the trailer, and you can see the trailer scene is much more brown and desaturated. You can just see the blue and greens and all the colors are really popping now. So other than the color pass, there's been a lot of work on so many other things. Here I have some interface elements, a little task list on the top right, directing you on the objectives you should be focused on. I have the Wisp system in this game, which the Wisp in the Companion, it's there to direct the player towards objectives. And it does cost a resource to summon a Wisp. It's one of those spend a little time collecting resources to get a little help on where to go next. So that's the whole point of the Wisp, and that's what this particle stream is. It's the Wisp flying towards an objective, and you're chasing after it. I've been focusing a lot on the floating islands. So I've been working on, here the island has some trees on it and particles, and it's a little more magical looking. And I have a bit of work I still want to do just to make them even better. The objective now is to summon a Wisp and to follow it to an artifact, and then to activate an artifact. So it is taking me to a magical chair. The chair is a placeholder mesh, but you can see it's glowing with particles. You interact with that, and what the artifact does, similar as to the Companion, it will unlock a moment in time, which are these beams of light that come from the sky. And you can see this white beam of light. The number is meant to be the year, so I've developed some time frame for the game and came up with a a calendar of sorts. Here in this other scene, you can see I've changed it to a moment in time. And when you interact with it, then you will experience the moment in time. And after doing so, you will then see the year again and maybe some text, which this example is showing. And of course, the icon will be filled in. This little pop-up comes up anytime a skybeam is directly in front of your character. It's basically tracing ahead and looking to see if you're aiming at any of them, and that's how it appears. Once interacting with the skybeam, here is a moment in time. In the companion, these were called visions, and I've been calling them visions as well in this game. So here in this one, there is a family and they're traveling in a cart. What I really like about this scene is the pastel colors of the trees and the grass. It's all really coming together. It's not as contrasty here because the sun is in a different position. It's more high noon type, just middle of day, so it's brighter. I've been doing a lot of work. There's been a few other elements added to these scenes. Once the camera shifts back to the character here, you can see now there are these beams of light stemming from the actors in the scene. So the scene is actually still playing right now, even though I'm controlling the character. I had this idea that since you're flying around and you can be pretty high and far, there should be something showing you where the action is taking place that you're listening to, because the dialogue is, you basically listen to it as if it's a movie. It's not attenuated or anything, because I want the story to be crystal clear for the player. And I just wanted something to indicate where this dialogue will be coming from. So I added these beams of light onto the actors, and as if you get closer to the actors, the beams of light will fade away so as to not distract from the scene. After implementing it, I felt it was looking really nice. So what I did is also added it to other regular entities in the world. For example, the animals and the randomly created people that walk around, just so you, as you're flying around the level, have more of an indication where there's entities you can go and see, move around, and perhaps even interact with. I didn't want these beams of light to be too distracting, so most of these background entities, such as the animals, it's a much more faded version of it. There's a hint of it. It's not so contrasty, but it is there. It might grab your attention, and I feel it does add. It makes the world look a little more alive because you see these beams of light just like moving around, and you know something's down there doing something. So I really like how that turned out. The other thing I added, and this is from feedback from the companion, sometimes the player might replay a vision or a moment in time here. They get locked into the story, which some of these could be minutes long. So now, after replaying this vision, I added a couple options here. Toggle cinematic camera, the C button, and skip, which is the right arrow button. So I've pressed C, and now I'm back at my character flying around while the movie is playing. And after watching it in its cinematic mode, perhaps you want to get a different vantage point or watch it from your own perspective, either on the ground or flying around or whatever, or even take pictures from different angles. And then skip just entirely cancels out what's been playing. So here I press skip, and it just disappears, and the beam of light's back, and you can go in it again if you wish, or go somewhere else. The next thing is the save game system. The save game system was implemented quite a while ago, but as the game progresses, I continually need to test it and iterate on it. So here I am loading a save, and it's bringing up a loading screen. So what this is is I noticed when I saved the game and the character's on the ground level, I would load and the character would fall through the level because the ground has not loaded in time. So what this black screen is doing is basically checking that the ground loads first before it lets you control the character. I also have redone the settings menu. I had something pretty basic not too long ago. One thing I've wanted to do was create these quick settings, basically a little bit of everything on one screen, the things that players most likely change the most. The only thing that's not working right now is the rebinding your keys. Unreal Engine 5.1, which is what this game is being built in now, just changed how input is handled. It's basically a whole new system. So it will be in. That's just the one thing missing right now. And as I said, the game is in Unreal Engine 5.1, which was just released. It is something I've been waiting quite a while for. There's a lot of features in 5.1 that I've been waiting for to really before I can get a demo made available. I really needed 5.1 to go live. And the game is running much more performant now with Unreal 5.1. One of the big things is nanite can be used for foliage. Previously, you couldn't use nanite with world position offset, which is what makes grass and trees and leaves move. Now you can. These crops were slowing things down a little bit, the construction of them. Every time you load the level, it's spawning thousands of plants, basically. So now I've turned each field into a single static mesh that is nanite. There's 5 million triangles, nanite triangles. It'll be a lot quicker loading the level because it's not creating all of these corn plants each time. It's just loading a single static mesh. And because of nanite, the 5 million triangles are handled very, very well by the engine. Here's the nanite view for the whole level. Trees, the cornfields, rocks, and everything is nanite. The only thing really not nanite right now is the landscape, the terrain, which is actually something that can be converted to nanite, and maybe it will be in the future, and maybe it's not ever needed to be done. The landscape is actually quite efficient, and nanite might not be required. But all the black area is mostly the landscape and grass. I don't believe I'm using nanite on the grass right now. There is a performance issue with using nanite on foliage, grass, and other things still, and that has to do with shadows. Using shadows on nanite trees and grass will invalidate the shadow map, which is the blue area. So what that means is it's regenerating the shadow map in those areas, in the blue areas, almost every frame, and that's going to be a severe loss of frame rate. So the green is performant and the blue is not so much. So in this example, when I turn off the shadows for the trees, the landscape all of a sudden turns a lot more green, and that's what we want. And because of how much more performant it will be, the first demos of the game, there will likely be no shadows for the trees and other foliage. However, there is a solution. It's just not a very streamlined solution yet, and it's something I will probably hold off on. Instead of generating shadows off of the nanite geometry that moves, there's a solution to add a proxy mesh, which has a material not utilizing the world position offset. You generate the shadows off of that proxy mesh. And I have seen a plugin made by another indie developer that can help automate this whole system. It's still not a streamlined solution. There might be other solutions in the pipeline that could be worth waiting for. So that's the one minor thing with the nanite right now is shadows. And here I turn the shadows off for the cornfield, and you can see now almost the whole level is green, which is what we want. That'll be the most performant option for the game. And this is how the level looks with the shadows disabled on the trees, and it's passable. It doesn't look as good, but it will do for now for the first demo or so. The final thing here, the village is, due to the passage of time, different moments in time, there's a couple different states of the town, and here it's a much smaller, and the landscape is much more undeveloped. So I'm just toggling on a couple different layers that change a bit of how the level looks. So here is where we had the cornfields, and now it's just trees, and the bridge is still there, and a few houses, but it's not the big town. And these layers are turned on and off dynamically as you enter the moments in time, and it's meant to show passage of time a little better. So after all that, I would say the game is coming along really nicely with all these little back-end systems and interface items out of the way. Then I can really just focus on the story and the content and the puzzles and events and stuff. So it's really exciting. It's come a long way. So I hope you enjoyed seeing the progress these last couple months. I hope you enjoyed the trailer. But I think that'll be it with this one. Please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.